folksy friend, and on this channel we talk about all sorts of different folk beliefs, folk literature. If any of that sounds interesting, please think about subscribing. Today we are talking about folk beliefs, in particular Norse mythology. I ask you to be a little patient with me. Norse pronunciations and words, that's a language I am not super familiar with, so I'm gonna do my best. She is a giantess and the goddess of winter, skiing, and hunting. She shares her name with Scandinavia and one of Saturn's moons. She is Skadi. To begin understanding her, we need to know just a little bit about the basics of Norse mythology. There are 9 worlds around a central celestial tree. We humans live in one world, gods live in another, and to understand Skadi, we need to understand a little bit about the gods and the Jötunn. The gods live in the world Asgard, and there are 2 major clans of gods, the Aesir and the Vanir. We are interested in the Aesir, the main gods. Think Odin, Frigg, Loki, and Thor. Jötunn are frost giants who primarily live in Jotunheim. They are large, powerful, and enemies to the gods. Well, the relationship is a little more complicated than just enemies, but for the sake of just thinking about Skadi today, they're enemies. Jötunn are destructive and chaotic, like nature itself. They're typically related to cold, darkness, and death. They are also described as being very ugly, but interestingly, if a Jötunn has some sort of relationship with a god, then that Jötunn will somehow miraculously be very beautiful. This is the case for Skadi. She is described as looking young and beautiful, as having the skin and hair of a Jötunn, but the face of a goddess. Although she was only considered a goddess because of her marriage to a god. That's enough background. On to Skadi herself. Skadi's symbols are the bow and arrow. She rules over the wilderness, and she is known to be fierce and passionate. She is known as the snowshoe goddess, possibly because of the foot-related way she chose her husband. More on that in a minute. She was also seen to be nicer and a little more logical and understanding than the other Jötunn. Jötunn. The story of how Skadi ends up marrying a god is very interesting. It began with the death of her father, which is a very long story, including Loki flying through the air stuck to an eagle, the theft of very important apples of youth, turning a goddess into a nut, and a group of gods causing Skadi's father to fall to his death from a great height. Perhaps that is a story for another day. So, after the death of her father, Skadi puts on her armor and goes straight to the Aesir in Asgard. They're pretty scared of her. She is very fierce, and they offer to compensate her for her loss and to try to get out of a physical confrontation with her. They told her that she could choose her husband from among the Aesir gods. And she agreed to this because she, like many gods, giants, just people in Norse mythology, had a major crush on Baldur, the god of light, who is just beloved by everyone. But here's the catch. They knew she would pick Baldur, and honestly, no god wanted to marry a giant. So they essentially decided her choosing had to be kind of random. So they told her she could choose one of them by only looking at their feet. Because she really wanted Baldur, she went for what she thought were the prettiest feet, but those were not Baldur's. Those feet belonged to the Sea God Njord. So with her husband chosen, Skadi tells the gods she will not attack them, she will not seek revenge for the death of her father, only if they could make her laugh. So Loki, who had played a primary role in the death of her father, stepped up and took one for the team. He tied a rope to the beard of a nanny goat and the other end to his boys, and then he made the goat jump. Each time the goat would jump, he would understandably scream, and that led to everybody just breaking down in this roaring laugh, and that got Skadi in the end, and she started laughing too. So with her conditions met, she went to begin her new life with Njord. Unfortunately, though, their marriage was not meant to be. He was a sea god. He wanted to live by the sea, but she wanted to live in the home she had shared with her father, high up in the mountains. They tried to make it work, spending some time in his home, then some time in hers, and rotating that way, but ultimately it didn't work, and they decided to live apart. Some stories say that after Skadi separated from Njord, she later married Lur, the god of winter, but this seems unlikely because he is not known to have a wife in any other of his canonical stories. Other sources say that she actually ended up marrying Odin and that she gave him many sons. Later in mythology, we do see Skadi again. After the death of Baldur, which is again a story for another time, Loki is bound and Skadi ties a snake above his head, a snake that drips poison slowly onto him, causing him great pain. She had never really forgiven him for being a major factor in her father's death, and this was her chance for revenge. Skadi is a fierce, independent, strong woman. If you ever find yourself up in the Scandinavian mountains, keep an eye out because she might just be skiing nearby. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is honestly my first kind of dive into Norse mythology. I'm much more versed in Greek and Egyptian, so this is very interesting. If there are any other stories of Norse mythology or heck, any mythology that you think would be cool for me to look at, please let me know. Thank you for spending some time with me here today, and I hope you have a great week.